Welcome back to Velocity Invitational, where, as you can see, there is plenty of noise out there, and I've got two more guests to join me for what will be coverage of Group 7. Now, this a very eclectic and interesting Group 2 with some very interesting cars. We're looking at 72 to 81, IMSA GT, AAGT, and FIA cars from that era. And that's Group 4 FIA. James Alder joins me again. Carrie Eisenlaw also here, as always. Now, you should be out there, Carrie, but you're not. So first, let's get that explained first.
Well, yeah, I was supposed to go out there and get in the car, and through one deal or another, I ended up putting Billy back in the car. And I'm going to try to go out tomorrow, but I'll probably have to start from the back of the pack, which is still fine. But we had some problems with my car today, and I jumped out from the last class when we were running, and I started working on the car, and I wasn't really ready by the time we were lining up out there. And so and Billy had turned the time yesterday, and so I said, let's go out there and play, because you can see where he's at right now. He's in third place with a GTU car. Pretty impressive. The guy can really wheel his car around. Now I
love all these stories.
Yeah.
It's great.
Now, this car is kind of an interesting car. It's the yellow Porsche 911. It was built from a 912 and was built by Gerritsen. And Gerritsen used to take care of all the 935s back in the day. Well, they decided to take a bunch of the spare parts with one of the guys who used to build all the cars so he could build his own GTU car. They essentially took a 912 chassis and turned it into a complete 935 and put a GTU engine and GTU bodywork on the car. And so it's really a pretty trick little car.
I could say that takes some doing.
Yeah.
Well, as you can see, we're away and running.
Now, Kerry, is that Ranson on the pole? Is he on the pole or in second there? Ranson Webster's car?
Could well be. We'll see. Hang on. Who we got? Is Ransom in this one? Let's have a look.
Yes. Ranson's in the 935, the white one with the pink.
Yep.
Is that him falling back?
And somebody's having a problem right there.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, he's gone very slow, yeah. Charles Neerberg also out there in a 914/6. There's a beautifully prepared wide-bodied Corvette coming through.
Yeah, that's
Ransom Webster. Yeah, sorry, the 76 Porsche 935 K3. Yeah.
It looks like, Jonathan, he's dropped off there.
Yeah. Well, that's Martin Lauber, who we just saw there in the 64.
He's a very good driver.
Yeah. Well, I'm expecting him to come in soon and have a chat with us.
Yeah, Martin's very, very fast.
That drives a lot of cars on a lot of weekends, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah. Now, that Corvette out front is a Greenwood Corvette with a big block in it. That's a really cool car. I actually was on the track back in the day with that car.
Talk to me about Greenwood, because they are well known, right?
Yes, very well known. And he was building these crazy Corvettes, and they very, very trick chassis. They'd have the engine moved over for weight. They did everything they could in the rules to make these cars really, really fast, really competitive. And boy, they're the widest car out there, and you really knew it when they'd come by you. You'd see how wide they were.
And Kerry, is that your car you're talking about in second place right now? The yellow?
Yeah.
Well, he's right there.
Yeah.
Well, we're very privileged to have James Alder here in the booth this weekend. Usually he's a quick signee. He'll come in anytime. He'll talk. But now he's racing against Jenson Button. It's sort of like, you know, we have to get permission. We have to go through minders. And, you know, it's been tough. So we're very, very happy. And Jenson actually gave up his spot for this group to let James in, because he, you know.
Now the Z car that just went by, that was Joel Anderson's car back in the day. That's another GTU car, very, very fast car. That's driven by Rob Fuller, who runs the Z company, Z Garage. Very, very fast driver as well. You'll see him, he's right behind Martin right now. It's amazing how fast he gets that car going with that 2.8-liter engine.
Yeah, the 49 that we just saw on track there, that Datsun 240Z from 72, it's got an interesting history too.
Yes.
It was presented to John Cooper in Ontario Speedway and used as a pace car for the annual California 500. held in 1972.
It's a beautiful car.
There it is.
Great looking car.
It is, isn't it?
He's right there with him. That's amazing how fast he's going out there in that car. He's right there with Martin.
You know, in a weird way, Paul Newman, in his own way, in the SCCA, made that 240 famous.
He did.
Not
Absolutely.
because it was him, but he was winning in it, and he stuck with it. And I think he got 4 national titles in that kind of.
No, he did super well, and I think Adam Carolla has some of his cars.
Yes, he does.
Is Adam here this weekend?
No.
No, he's not.
No, he's not here this weekend. But another distinguished actor, podcaster, you name it, comedian, and another wealthy guy who's put his love and passion into racing and often comes to some of these vintage races.
I'll give you a little story with Adam. He pits under our tent a lot of times when we're in Monterey. And he had his 935 there. It was the Paul Newman 935, which when I was talking about, Gerritsen used to take care of that car. Well, the story goes that the year that they won, there was a little crack in the transmission, and they didn't want to put it back in the 935. So my car had the little engine, so his winning transmission is actually in that yellow car that's out there. And he came up and he'd heard the story, and he says, "Hey, I want my transmission back."
Now, the Decon Monza, I'll ask either of you, but
Yes.
what's the history of that name?
It's the combination of two people's names. And there's some things. There was I'm going to say Horst's last name incorrectly, but the con was that, and some people said that was from construction. But it was two people's name. They put it together. Horst was the guy who ran the Alpha back in the day with the Datsun 510s, and who finished second to John Morton that year.
Right.
And then they started this company and started building these cars.
The overflow's not going well.
Yeah. And originally they didn't have the big wing on the back, but these cars were built as the Porsche killer. And a lot of people, including in 75 and 76, came out with the cars, and they won the championships. And so they were a very, very impressive car. Then they came out with the 935s, and that's when they all of a sudden put the wings on it, and they wanted to go race against the 935s. They weren't as successful against the 935s, but a really, really neat car. And then there were other ones that were built after that time. After they were only in business for about 3 years.
Yeah, and this period, 72 to 81, was quite a transitional period for sports car racing. We went through quite a lot of iterations. And
look at this. This is full position.
This is side by side in the Corvette.
Go, Billy, go.
Oh, man, that's great.
This is great.
Oh, man.
That's why your name's up there. You're gonna get credit for this. You know that, don't you?
I'll take it.
You'll say I won at Sonoma, and I was commentating as well.
And then someone says, "Why do you do that?" It's like, well, now I have bragging rights to say when I go to sell my vintage car,
absolutely,
how well it finished out here. That's a pretty good reason.
This is actually your best drive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's see if Billy can hold that position.
Oh yeah, he's got 800 horsepower behind him, and we've got about 325 in this thing.
Wow.
A little smoke.
So that's a perfect example of the difference of finesse between the Porsche and the Corvette. I mean,
yeah.
So that's
here you go.
So this is Patrick
There's the 800
Byrne, right?
horsepower.
Yeah, this is the 800 horsepower.
But this is Patrick at the wheel.
In the this is Billy Johnson in the wheel of the.
Yes, but
in the
Patrick,
yes,
who's
yes,
just overtaken him.
Yes.
Who
good
is
driver,
I was about
good.
to say he's done GT prototypes, and he's got 40 podium finishes in his career in GT racing alone, as well as prototypes. So he's also an Asian Le Mans Series champion of past. So a handy peddler, if you will. Whoa, and up the inside, nice move.
Look at that.
Billy Johnson doing the business in the shadow of Elson Eisenlaw, because he sat right next to me.
Wow.
Well, you're winning.
Yeah. But if I drive tomorrow, I get to start from the back of the pack. And I don't think I'm going to get up where he's at right now. But we'll give it
you
all.
can see in the faster part of it straightens out a little bit. The Corvette horsepower comes into play. But in the tight part of the course, Billy is right there on him.
It's kind of like the mini Mustang race.
Yeah. Well, this is great stuff. Burt Greenwood, that's it.
Yeah. Well, John Greenwood was the, and Bert, they were brothers.
Yeah.
And John was the one who would drive and do a lot of different stuff, really neat stuff that the Greenwood brothers did back in the day.
So why was the wide body so unusual? It sort of says the wide body wasn't often done, but why? I wonder why they didn't have that many of them.
Yeah,
whoa! He went off course there to avoid the back marker. Oh. That was kind of close.
Yeah, the people, you could put the big wide wheels on, but people were trying to tuck them under as far as they could. He used it, and he believed in the wide stance of the cars, so he would make the cars absolutely as wide as he could make them. And some people say it didn't work, and he just said, "I'll put a bigger engine in it," because they were saying it was going to be an aero disaster. They were very, very fast cars.
I was about to say, on the banks of Daytona, that car reached a speed of 224 miles per hour.
Yeah. Without the chicane at the time, but still, But those are some of the reasons why they had to put the chicane in.
Yep.
Because those cars were just so fast going down the road.
It also says that John Greenwood managed to get it up to 230, but it doesn't say at Daytona, but necessarily. But that's a pretty hefty, weighty speed to be going. As we take a look at the 771. I watched these guys in practice, and they were really putting the cars through their paces for sure. This is a 68 Porsche 911. And raced at the 24 Hours of Daytona in 1970. Bob Tullius at the wheel. Yeah. Of course, the great Trans Am driver.
I think this is a fairly new car for him. I think he's had this car for now about a year and a half or so, and he's done very, very well. Done a good job of watching him come through the turns, hitting his marks, doing a good job. Looks like he's coming into the pits here now.
Well, ironically, this is a car, I mentioned Bob Tullius of Trans Am fame, but he also raced this Porsche in Trans Am, and of course we forget that Porsche also had some runs in Trans Am back in the day. So an interesting car, and it's raced Watkins Glen, Mount Tremblay, you name it.
Now you see the two cars that are showing up right now. That's Casey Millette in the Z car up front. He used to drive a lot against Newman and stuff in the Datsuns in the day. Casey Millette was a one-man team, and he drove. He built the car, he crewed the car, he did everything himself, and he was known as a guy who did this, and he was very successful doing it. Well, he's now, I'm going to tell you, he's the same age as the number on the car right now. And he got the car back, and he redid the car 100% himself, and it's probably one of the most original cars out there. I actually owned that car back in the day. I drove that car in the 80s, and why I know some about that. And the car he had just come by was the Morrison car, which was a car that did a lot of racing. It's got about 60 different IMSA races, and that was done by Charles Mendez, and the other driver who was with him, that's losing my mind right now, drove the car that had the lobster, the red lobster on top
right.
of it.
Oh yeah.
That can't even. They drove together, so that car was a really, really neat piece, and I actually happen to own that car at one point. But we sold it when it was unfinished, and that's what I bought the yellow car with. Was the funds from that car, and Charles Mendez restored that car. So these cars are very, very original and done by a lot of the people who are still around. And the guy who built my yellow car out there is John Johnson. And he's here today also, and he's come by and seen the car. He's no relation to Billy, but he was very fast in the day and did very, very well with that. And when Bob Gerritsen came by and saw the car at one point, I said, "I don't know if you recognize this car," and he jumped out and he goes, "Johnny!" And he named the car Johnny, and the whole crew loved that whole story with that car.
Well, your car is in the lead right now. You pulled away from the Greenwood Corvette. It looked like on deceleration, I saw a little smoke coming out of the yellow car. Would that be a valve guide?
I don't know.
Do you think?
The engine's fairly new in it, but I am seeing the puff of smoke come out of there, and we may have to take a look on that.
But he's holding his lead.
Yeah.
As a 9:14.6.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Charles, isn't it?
Charles Neuberg?
Yeah, I believe so. Is he driving? No, is he driving the white 911 or the 914?
No, that's Bernd Neuberg.
That is. Yeah. Doing a great job, very fast. I was driving with him a couple days ago out there with that car, and that car scoots.
And well, look at how he's using the whole track. I mean, a lot of guys don't go out in the rumble strips, but as far as I'm concerned, that's pavement.
Well, Charles is a great driver, and of course he does mostly Formula One cars and has quite a collection himself in Dallas, Texas, and he's also a land speed record holder. 414 miles per hour at Bonneville. Wow.
This car won Daytona back, I believe, in 80 or 81, and at the time
81.
Yeah. It was owned by Cole at the time, Bill Cole, and I think it was second overall, first in class, second overall, I believe. So really, really good car.
Ooh.
There's a decon there.
Yeah.
That's without the big wing and stuff on it. And that's a really, really, really nicely restored car.
In fact, I've got its history. The car was owned by Bill Cole, as you say.
Yes.
Most successful Porsche 9146 in IMSA history.
Yes.
Winning its class in 1980. I was wrong. 80 and Daytona 24 hours. Following a more detailed summary, you can look at it. Sebring, 78, 10th overall. 11th at Talladega. Laguna Seca at 78. 12th, 4th at Lime Rock. So it's had a strong history.
Yeah, it's a great car.
This guy, Chet Taylor, watch him. He's really driving that car very, very well. He's drifting.
Chet's
that
out
car.
there. It's just a flash of red from his gloves going across the steering wheel there, man. He's really driving the wheels off that thing.
I know. When I do SVRA historics, me in the commentary booth, we always say, hey, get some day gloves, guys, or white gloves, because we can really see you working when we can see the gloves. When they're bright colored gloves, when you have gray gloves, we don't really see it. But when you've got something bright like that, we really see how much input you really are putting into these cars. You see it obviously with yours, James, because it's a massive steering wheel, and so you're always working the wheel. But yeah, it's great to see. So this is our Group 7 qualifying race here at the Velocity Invitational. You're listening to Carrie and James Alder, who will be driving the 33 XK120 and has been out already this weekend. Carrie Eisenlaw, who should be out there, and he's actually leading the race, but this man is a very talented man. He's here commentating as well as leading the race.
Well, I'm actually in the car commentating while I'm driving. Yeah.
Which you do sound very relaxed.
Yeah.
And as though you were in an air-conditioned room. No, joking aside, guys, just unless you didn't hear the story, Billy Johnson is at the wheel of the number 8, leading the race at the moment. And Carrie graciously has decided to join us here and watch his car go round, which is probably a good idea.
But think of how hot it is in the cockpits of those cars right now.
Very hot.
I mean, it's pretty hot here. It's brutally hot inside those cars.
That's the Decon Monza.
Yeah.
And in fact, that was built by Decon for the Chevrolet factory, owned and raced in period by ex-Olympic snow skier Jerry Jolly. How about that? Nice little story.
There's the 41 car.
Well, there you are, Kerry, out all alone in front.
Yep. This is an amazing feat. Not that I've seen this in motor racing very often. I thought Senna's lap at Monaco was one of the greatest things I've seen. Senna's lap at Donington in the race of the century, the first opening laps. But to see Carrie doing this by remote is incredible.
And I don't even see so what happened to the Greenwood Corvette?
He disappeared, didn't he?
Yeah, he's gone. And now Martin Lauber is in second position.
Yeah, Lauber's made it up in the 64 to second position.
And Rob Fuller in third in the 240Z. And then Chet Taylor just behind him.
Yeah, and when the camera was on, when the drone was on Chet Taylor, I mean, he was really on the edge with that car, more so than I see Billy. Billy has a little bit more control here. But obviously there's different classes of cars out here on the track. I mean, that's one thing about vintage racing is that you have to understand that there's different classes of cars. They might be on the track at the same time. But I always say you got to find the race within the race.
Yeah, you're
and
absolutely
it might be
right.
somebody that's dicing for 15th position, but that person's having the race of their life, with one or two other competitors.
Yeah, no kidding.
And that's actually George Dyer, who's driving the car. That car won at Daytona, won Sebring back in the day, and that's George himself driving the car.
And Kerry, you won Sebring.
in class in 1985. Yeah.
That's
Cool.
incredible.
Yeah.
That's
incredible.
a great accolade. Congratulations.
Yeah. Back then, it was more of a race of survival. And so I like to tell people mostly we survived.
Yeah.
You know, you say he won Sebring. He also was second at Daytona in the 24 hours as well. So that's a high praise.
In class as well, but
Yeah.
we tried.
Well, to finish first, you must first finish, as
But
they say.
I learned that one thing is that I've got a Rolex Daytona that I got at one time, and someone said, "Did you win that?" I said, "No." I found out it was a lot cheaper just to buy one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, that concludes our coverage of Group 7's first race. Thankfully, the wind is picking up a little bit because we are hearing stories, at least I am sitting here in the aircon, but I'm hearing stories that it is brutally hot out on track.
Yeah.
The track temperature will be going up and up and up. Coming up, Pro Driver Exhibition Session. That'll be one of our exhibition races, and we'll try to give you some insight into that as well. But we'll take a short break. My thanks to James and to Carrie. Thank you for coming in, guys. I hope you get everything fixed and sorted for your various cars tomorrow, but good luck. They'll be back out again tomorrow in their various groups, but we'll take a short break from Sonoma and we'll be back with more action after this.
Thanks for having us.